My name is Casey Reed. I'm 29 years old. 3 days ago, my family called and told me not to come home for New Year's Eve. You'll just make everyone uncomfortable, my mother said, her tone calm and polished like she was rejecting a proposal, not her own daughter. So, on December 31st, I sat alone in my small studio apartment in Seattle, watching fireworks flicker faintly through my window while strangers laughed on the streets below, somewhere across the country. In my family's estate in Lakewood Heights, champagne glasses clinked under chandeliers, and no one noticed I wasn't there. Or maybe they did. They just didn't care. At exactly 12:01 a.m., my phone rang. My brother, Ethan. His voice was shaking so hard I barely recognized it. "Casey, what did you do?" he said. "Dad just saw the news he can't breathe right. Mom is losing it." "What the hell did you do?" I didn't answer right away, because I already knew what he was talking about. At midnight, my company Synapse Core Technologies had officially gone public. Valuation $2.3 billion. Overnight, I became one of the youngest self-made female tech billionaires in the country. But that wasn't what shook them. It wasn't the money. It was the interview. The one that went live at the exact same moment as the IPO. The one where I released 3 years' worth of emails, patent filings, and recorded conversations, proving that my brother tried to steal everything I built. Before we go any further, take a moment to subscribe, but only if you believe you deserve respect and recognition. Let me know where you're from and how old you are. I'd really love to know who's here with me. This is a fictional story, with some elements enhanced using AI, created purely for education and entertainment, not intended to represent or target any real person or organization. Now, let me take you back 3 years ago, before everything broke, before I understood exactly where I stood in my own family. The Reed family wasn't just wealthy, we were old money. The kind that came with a decades-old biotech corporation, private foundations, and a mansion so large it felt more like a museum than a home. There were rules, unspoken, but rigid: how to speak, how to dress, which fork to use before you were even old enough to question why it mattered. And then there was Ethan, 5 years older than me, perfect, at least. That's how everyone saw him. He had this effortless charm, the kind that made investors trust him within minutes. He wore tailored suits like they were second skin. He knew how to shake hands, how to laugh at the right moment, how to make people feel important. He was everything my parents had ever wanted in a successor. And me, I was inconvenient. I preferred code over conversations, algorithms over small talk. I got accepted into Stanford for computer science, specializing in AI-driven diagnostics. My parents smiled for the photos, but later, I overheard my mother telling someone at a dinner party, "It's just a phase. She'll grow out of it and do something more practical." I didn't correct her. I never did. When I graduated top of my class, my family didn't show up. They were at one of Ethan's investor golf events. "Sweetheart, it's important for his future." My mother explained over the phone. "You understand." "Right. Yeah, I understood." I understood when I moved into a cramped apartment with peeling paint while Ethan got a luxury penthouse downtown. I understood when family dinners turned into business briefings where I barely spoke. I understood when my father introduced Ethan as the future of Reed Biotech, and me as our daughter. She works with computers. And back then, I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't need their approval. I just didn't realize yet how far they were willing to go to take everything from me. But that's when I finally understood something I had been ignoring my whole life. In my family, intelligence didn't matter as much as image. Innovation didn't matter as much as legacy. And I didn't matter as much as my brother, Ethan. I just didn't realize how far that imbalance would go until 3 years ago. In March 2022, I was working on something that wasn't just important, it was transformative. My two co-founders from Stanford and I had built an algorithm that could analyze medical imaging faster and more accurately than anything on the market. It could detect patterns doctors couldn't even see yet. Early-stage diseases. The kind that usually went unnoticed until it was too late. We called it Synapse Core because it connected neural networks in a way no one had done before. We were close. Beta testing was weeks away. Investors were already interested. For the first time in my life, everything I had worked for was finally coming together. Then my mother called. Casey, we need to talk about Ethan. Her voice had that tone. Controlled. Final. Not a request. Reed Biotech is having a difficult quarter. She continued. Your brother is under a lot of pressure. You need to help him. I told her the truth, that I was in the middle of something critical, that my company was at a fragile stage. Company, she repeated. Like the word didn't belong to me. Casey. Startups are for people with nothing to lose. You have a family legacy, a real business that's been around for decades. Ethan needs support. And you're sitting in that tiny apartment playing with code. The message was clear. What I built wasn't real. What Ethan did was... But there was something I learned at Stanford that my family never understood. If you don't protect your work, someone else will take it. So before I agreed to anything, I met with a lawyer, Daniel Hayes, one of the best in intellectual property law for tech startups. We sat in a quiet cafe near campus, my laptop open between us as he reviewed everything. If anyone tries to claim this, he said, sliding the documents toward me, you'll have proof they can't touch. I filed the patent on March 15th, 2022. Every line of code, every iteration, every version, time-stamped. Legally mine. I didn't do it because I expected a fight. I did it because I wanted peace of mind. Then I agreed to help Ethan. Family obligation. My mother called it. A few days later, I drove down to the Reed Biotech headquarters in Harbor City. A glass building with our name etched into steel above the entrance like a monument. Ethan's office was exactly what you'd expect. Top floor, corner view, awards lining the walls. A framed portrait of our grandfather watching over everything. Casey, he said, pulling me into a hug like we were close. We weren't. Thanks for coming. This means a lot. I showed him the basics, how AI could integrate into diagnostic devices. I kept the core algorithm to myself, but I gave him enough to understand the potential. He wrote everything down, nodding like he had just discovered gold. This is exactly what we need. He said, investors are going to love this. 2 weeks later, he invited me to sit in on a pitch meeting. I stayed quiet in the back of the room while he stood at the front, presenting my ideas, my research, my framework. Reed Biotech is entering a new era, Ethan said confidently, clicking through slides I had never seen before. We're integrating artificial intelligence to revolutionize early diagnostics. One of the investors looked over at me. And you are. Ethan didn't hesitate. That's my sister, Casey. She's been helping with some of the technical side. Helping. Like I was just assisting him. After the meeting, he handed me a document. Standard NDA, he said casually, just to protect the company. You understand. I looked down at the pages. A non-disclosure agreement covering everything related to Reed Biotech. And for a moment, something didn't feel right. This protects me too. Right? I asked quietly. Ethan smiled without hesitation. Of course. We're family. Casey, we look out for each other. So I signed it. Because back then, I still believed that meant something. Thanksgiving 2023 proved how wrong I was. The dining room in my parents' house looked flawless, like something out of a luxury magazine. A long table dressed in fine china, crystal glasses reflecting the chandelier light, white floral arrangements perfectly placed down the center. Everything was elegant, controlled, impressive. 12 guests filled the room. Investors, family friends, people who only showed up when there was something to gain. My mother seated me at the far end of the table, next to someone who barely knew my name and didn't try to. I spent most of the evening listening, not speaking. When dinner was served, my mother stood. Most of you know my son, Ethan, she said, her voice warm, proud. CEO of Reed Biotech. We're incredibly proud of everything he's building. Applause followed. Ethan lifted his glass with a practiced smile. And this is our daughter, Casey. My mother continued, her tone shifting just slightly. She works in technology. Very smart, just a bit quiet. A few polite nods. One guest leaned forward. Technology. What exactly do you do? I opened my mouth to answer. Ethan cut in. She's still figuring things out, he said lightly. Very talented with computers. Just not really a people person. Soft laughter spread across the table. I looked down at my plate. Appetite gone. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside. Casey, she said gently, you don't mean to, but you make people uncomfortable. You barely said a word in there. My mother continued, her tone soft but heavy with judgment. Could you try to be a little warmer? People like energy. Casey, you're so... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I left before dessert. By June 2024, things shifted. Ethan called me into his office, saying it was urgent. I drove down early that morning, already sensing something was off. His assistant let me in without a word. I'd been there enough times by then. He was standing by the window when I walked in, hands in his pockets, staring out at the water. When he turned around, his expression wasn't confident anymore. It was tense. We need the full algorithm. Casey. I blinked. What? The AI diagnostic system. The one you've been building. We need it at Reed Biotech. Investors are pulling back. We need something big. Something now. This could save the company. That's not company property. I said slowly. That's my startup. He laughed. But there was no humor in it. Your startup, Casey. You've been consulting for us. You signed an NDA. Anything related to our business belongs to Reed Biotech. That's not how it works. His tone hardened instantly. Don't tell me how it works. I'm trying to protect this family's legacy. Don't you care about that? Before I could respond, the door opened. My mother walked in like she had been waiting just outside. Casey, she said, sitting down calmly, your brother is right. You signed an agreement. You have a responsibility. The NDA covers your company's information, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Not my independent work. Independent Ethan cut in. You developed it while working with us. That's a conflict. My mother's expression turned cold. Don't turn this into something legal. Family doesn't fight like that. Just give Ethan the algorithm and we can move forward. I looked at both of them, not as family, as people asking me to give up everything I had built. No, I said. Ethan's face flushed. Careful. Casey, you don't want this to get ugly. I didn't answer. I just left. But before I stepped out, I pressed record on my phone. After that day, I disappeared from their world. Not in a dramatic way. No arguments, no official words. The invitations just stopped. Sunday dinners, family gatherings, holidays. Gone. Instead, I saw photos online. Ethan smiling with our parents. Celebrations I wasn't part of. Captions about family nights that didn't include me, like I had never existed. My friends started asking questions. Everything okay with your family? One of them asked over coffee. What was I supposed to say? That I had been erased for refusing to hand over my life's work. I tried calling my father once. He answered, distracted. Dad, what's going on? Why am I suddenly not welcome? He sighed. Your mother and Ethan are under a lot of pressure. The company is struggling. Maybe it's better if you give them space. Space from what I didn't do anything. You refuse to help your brother after everything this family has given you. Something inside me broke. You didn't come to my graduation. You've never once asked about my work. What exactly has this family given me? Silence. Then he said quietly, maybe you should apologize. When you're ready to be part of this family again, let us know. The call ended. I sat there, staring at my phone, realizing something I had avoided for years. I hadn't been pushed out. I had been replaced. And for the first time in my life, I stopped trying to earn my place. A few days later, an email changed everything. A feature request from a major publication. They wanted to cover my company's IPO, my journey, my work. I read it 3 times before replying. Yes, and I have something you're going to want to hear. On December 28th, my mother called again. Casey, about New Year's Eve, she said, skipping any greeting. Ethan is hosting investors, partners, important people from Westbridge Medical. This isn't a family gathering. It's professional. I stayed quiet. I just want to be clear. She continued. You shouldn't come. You don't want me there. I said, I don't want anything that could create tension. She replied, Ethan is under pressure. His entire future depends on this. If you show up and say something. She paused. Tell the truth, I asked. Silence. Then her voice turned cold. Don't come. Casey, for everyone's sake. Don't worry, I said. I won't. I hung up and stood in my apartment, looking around at the empty space. My calendar showed December 31st with nothing on it. No plans, no invitations, no family. Have you ever felt left behind by the very people who were supposed to stand by you? I truly hope You never have to feel that kind of silence. But if you have, I understand more than you think. You're not alone in this. If you're ready, share your story. I'm here. And I genuinely want to listen. What do you think I would do if I didn't go home? I thought about calling friends, but they all had somewhere to be. So I opened my laptop instead. The interview had been finalized. Weeks of verification, patent filings, emails, the recording from Ethan's office, my former professor, Dr. Lillian Grant, confirming the timeline, Daniel Hayes reviewing every word. You're protected. He had told me, this is your work. They can't take it. Everything was ready. The article, the IPO announcement, a second piece from a major tech outlet scheduled 1 minute later. All I had to do was let it happen. I checked the time. 3 days. 3 days until their perfect New Year's Eve. 3 days until the truth came out. Good, I said quietly to myself. December 31st, 11 p.m. I sat alone on my couch. Lights off, laptop open. On my phone, Ethan's social media story played. The house was glowing. Lights wrapped around every column. Music echoing through the halls. Guests in formal wear. Laughing. Holding champagne. My mother moved through the room like she owned it. My father shook hands with people who mattered. Ethan stood at the center. Confident. Composed. Exactly who they wanted him to be. No one noticed I wasn't there. Outside my window, strangers counted down together. Fireworks lit up the sky. People celebrated. I refreshed my email. The article was queued. 6 minutes left. I opened it one last time. Every detail laid out. The company's valuation. My name. The evidence. The truth about what Ethan had done. Dr. Grant's statement. Daniel's legal analysis. Everything documented. My cursor hovered. On the other screen. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. I glanced at my phone. Ethan and his guests raising their glasses. 3, 2, 1. Fireworks exploded outside. I hit refresh. The article went live. My face appeared instantly on the homepage. The headline was unmistakable. Within seconds, notifications started flooding in. Messages, emails, calls, people reacting in real time. My phone stayed silent for 1 minute, exactly 1 minute. Then it rang. I didn't need to look. I already knew who it was. I stared at my phone as it vibrated across the table. Ethan, 12:01 a.m. I let it ring for a second. Then I answered. Hello? Ethan. Casey, what did you do? His voice was shaking, almost unrecognizable, behind him. I could hear chaos. People shouting, glass clinking. Someone crying. Dad just saw the news. He can barely breathe. Mom is screaming. What the hell did you do? I kept my voice calm. I told the truth. My company. My work. Your work, he snapped. You signed an NDA. You can't just go public like this. This is defamation. You recorded us? I documented what happened. The way you twisted it, he said bitterly. You made it look like I stole from you. I was trying to help the company. I closed my eyes for a second. The patent was filed 4 months before your first investor pitch. The timelines don't lie. That's coincidence. People work on similar ideas all the time, not with identical structure, not with the same terminology I created. There was a pause. Then my mother's voice cut through in the background. Is that her? Give me the phone. Ethan came back on, voice breaking. You've destroyed us. Investors are calling. They're pulling out. The board is panicking. Do you understand what you've done? You've ruined this company. You've ruined this family. No, I said quietly. You did that when you tried to erase me. You introduced me as your assistant. You presented my work as yours. You demanded I hand over everything I built and threatened me when I refused. That's not help. Ethan, that's theft. The NDA doesn't cover my intellectual property. Ask your lawyers. Or read the article. Silence. Then the call ended. A second later, my phone rang again. My mother. I stared at the screen, but before I answered, I thought back to the moment everything truly changed. 6 months earlier, July 2024. I was sitting in a quiet cafe near Stanford with Dr. Lillian Grant, my former professor and advisor. She had reviewed my work, every detail of it. This is exceptional. Casey, she said, setting down her coffee. This isn't just good research. This is career defining. Why are you holding back? So I told her everything. The pressure from my family, the NDA, Ethan's demands, the way I was slowly being pushed out of my own life. She listened without interrupting. Then she leaned forward. An NDA cannot take what you never gave them. She said, you filed the patent under your name, yes. Before Ethan ever saw anything. Then you're protected. But protection isn't enough. You need proof, documentation, emails, recordings, a clear timeline. I have all of that, I said quietly. Good, she replied, because silence only protects the people who are trying to take from you. I looked at her. If I speak up, I lose my family. Yes, she said simply, but you keep your integrity. And your work. She paused, then added, and you show every woman watching this that they don't have to disappear just to keep the peace. She offered to go on record, to verify everything, to stand behind me. That was the moment I stopped hesitating. By September, I was sitting in a venture capital office in Palo Alto with my co-founders, floor-to-ceiling windows, investors across the table, everything polished and precise. We're ready to back your IPO. One of them said, what's your timeline, New Year? I answered. They exchanged looks. That's unusual. Why not wait? I chose my words carefully because there's something I need to say, and it needs to be said at that moment. A statement the partner asked about ownership, about protecting intellectual property, about what happens when people try to take what isn't theirs. The room went quiet. You're alleging something serious, he said. I'm proving it. I laid everything out. Patents, emails, recordings, legal review. If anyone challenges me, I said, I can prove this is mine. He studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Get us everything. If it's solid, we'll move forward on your terms. We shook hands. That was the moment I realized what I was building. Not just a company, a moment, a detonation. By November, I was on a video call with a journalist. She had already spent weeks verifying everything before speaking to me. You're about to become one of the youngest billionaires in tech, she said. But you want to tell a different story? Yes, I said, about what I took a breath, about what it costs to protect what you build, when the people trying to take it are your own family. The journalist looked at me carefully through the screen. Casey, your company is about to go public at a valuation that will make you one of the youngest female billionaires in tech. But you said you want to talk about something more than success. What is it? I took a slow breath. 3 years ago, my brother Ethan, CEO of Reed Biotech, tried to claim my algorithm as company property. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. I have documentation. I continued. Patent filings under my name, emails where he first asked to collaborate, then demanded the algorithm, then threatened legal action, a signed NDA, and legal analysis proving it doesn't apply to my independent work. I also have a recorded meeting from June. I shared my screen. She scrolled through everything in silence. We'll need to verify all of this, she said finally. It's already been reviewed, I replied. My lawyer, Daniel Hayes. My former professor, Dr. Lillian Grant. My co-founders. The full timeline is documented. And you understand what this means, she asked. This goes public. Your family will respond. It won't be quiet. I thought about the holidays, about sitting alone while they celebrated without me. I'm not doing this for revenge. I said, I'm doing it because this is my work, and I've been invisible long enough. She nodded slowly. When do you want this published? Midnight, January 1st, the same moment the IPO goes live. That's bold. It's necessary. A pause. Once this is out, she said, there's no taking it back. I know, I answered. That's the point. Hours later, my phone rang. My mother, I answered. What you've done is unforgivable, she said, her voice cold, controlled. You humiliated this family. Ethan's investors are pulling out. The board is in crisis. Your father can barely speak. That's not my responsibility. Not your responsibility. Her voice cracked. You destroyed your brother. You made us look like criminals. You violated the NDA. No, I said calmly. I didn't. The NDA doesn't cover my work. Daniel made that clear. We will sue you. We will take everything. You won't win, I replied. And it will all become public. Every detail. Do you really want that silence? You've ruined Ethan's career. She said, no, I said quietly. He ruined it himself. She let out a bitter laugh. The truth is, Casey, you've always been jealous of him. You just couldn't stand that he was respected. My mother continued, that people actually liked him. I cut her off. The truth is, you spent my entire life making me feel like I didn't matter, like my work wasn't real, like I was just in the way. And when I finally built something undeniable, you tried to take it. You're delusional. I have proof. I said, patents, emails, recordings. The truth isn't a feeling. It's documented. Silence. Then she said coldly, you are no longer part of this family. Something inside me shifted. Not pain. Not anymore. I haven't been part of this family for a long time. I said quietly. You made sure of that. I hung up. Seconds later, another call came in. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Casey Reed. This is Daniel Cho from Techline News. Do you have a moment? Yes. We've seen the article. Reed Biotech is denying everything. They say you're exaggerating. How do you respond? I looked out at the fireworks still lighting the sky. I stand by every word. The evidence speaks for itself. And your brother claims it's coincidence. My patent came first. The structure is identical. That's not coincidence. Do you regret going public? I paused. No, I said. I regret that I had to. I ended the call and opened my phone. My story was already everywhere. My phone kept buzzing long after I ended the call when I opened social media. My story was already trending nationwide. The comments came in waves. Some people understood immediately. They talked about how important it was to protect your work, especially as a woman in tech. They said what happened to me was exactly why documentation mattered. Others weren't so kind. They called me selfish, said I destroyed my own family for money, that private matters should stay private, that I was vindictive. I read everything. Then I closed the app. The truth was out. That was enough. I didn't sleep that night. By 6 a.m., I gave up trying. I made coffee and opened my laptop. The numbers were overwhelming. Hundreds of missed calls, hundreds of emails, thousands of notifications. I started reading. Dr. Lillian Grant wrote first. She said she was proud of me, that I had done the right thing. Daniel Hayes had already responded to Reed Biotech's legal team. They were threatening a lawsuit. But he made it clear they had no case. My co-founders were panicking. Major media outlets wanted interviews. Everything was moving faster than we expected. But not all messages were supportive. A distant relative asked how I could do this to my parents. An old family friend accused me of ruining decades of reputation. Someone I didn't even know called me a disgrace. Family comes first, they said. I let those words sit. Then I opened a different message. A woman I had never met wrote that her boss had taken credit for her work for 2 years. She stayed silent because she was afraid. My story gave her the courage to speak up. Another said she had been hiding her startup from her family because they didn't take her seriously. Now she was ready to go public. Another wrote that her father always compared her to her brother. She said she finally felt seen. I leaned back, exhausted. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. Not to my family, but to everyone else who understood. By mid-morning, Ethan held a press conference. I watched it live from my kitchen, my coffee untouched. He stood behind a podium in the same conference room where he once presented my work as his own, but this time, he didn't look confident. He looked tired. I want to address the allegations made by my sister, Casey Reed. He began. His voice was rough. My sister is going through a difficult time. We love her. We've always supported her. But these claims are false. A reporter raised her hand immediately. Can you explain the timeline? Her patent was filed months before your first presentation using similar technology. Ethan hesitated. In tech. Ideas overlap. He said, it's collaborative. Another journalist leaned forward. But the emails show you asked her directly for the algorithm. How is that overlap? They're taken out of context. What context makes "we need your algorithm" mean something else? Ethan's composure started to crack. I was trying to collaborate. He insisted. She's misinterpreting it. And the recording where you threatened legal action if she didn't hand it over, his jaw tightened. That recording was made without my knowledge. It's legal in that state. The reporter replied, did you say those things? Ethan gripped the podium. This press conference is over. He walked off. The cameras kept rolling. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Headlines, social media, commentary. People weren't debating anymore. They were watching him unravel in real time. My phone buzzed again. A message from Dr. Grant. He just destroyed himself. She wrote. She was right. I didn't need to expose him any further. He did it on his own. By late afternoon, Reed Biotech released an official statement. The board had suspended Ethan pending an investigation into the allegations. They emphasized ethics, transparency, accountability. It wasn't signed by my parents. It came from the board. That told me everything I needed to know. I sat on my couch, still in the same clothes, staring at the screen. Ethan wasn't fired. Not yet. But he was no longer in control. And for the first time, the truth had consequences. My phone buzzed again. An email from someone I didn't recognize, a board member from Reed Biotech. They expressed regret for what had happened, said they were committed to a full investigation. They wanted to meet with me and my legal team to understand everything. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Daniel Hayes. He called within minutes. This is good. Casey, he said, it means they're taking this seriously. They're distancing themselves from Ethan to protect the company. What happens now, I asked. They investigate, review documents, interview people. If they confirm what we already know, they'll have grounds to remove him completely. And if they don't, investors will force their hand. I hung up and checked the news. Reports were already coming in. Major stakeholders pulling out. Analysts questioning the company's future. Ethan's position was slipping fast, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Like I had won something I never wanted to fight for. The next morning, my phone rang again. My father. I let it ring a few times before answering. Casey. His voice sounded older than I remembered. Can we talk? We are talking? No, he said quietly. I mean, really talk. I didn't say anything. I owe you an apology. He continued. I waited. I knew. He admitted. I knew something wasn't right with Ethan's presentations. I knew that work wasn't his. I thought, it was yours. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I was a coward. His voice broke. Your mother believed in him so much. The company was struggling. I kept thinking if we just got through it, everything would be fine. I told myself you'd understand. I didn't. I said, I know. He whispered. I let them push you out. I let you disappear. I let your mother exclude you from everything. Silence filled the space between us. You're my daughter, he said, his voice shaking. I should have protected you. I should have stood up for you. I failed you. Casey, I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes, feeling tears I didn't expect. An apology doesn't fix it, I said softly. It doesn't give me back the years I spent thinking I wasn't enough. I know, he said, but I needed you to hear it. Another pause. I'm proud of you. He added quietly. I always have been. I just didn't know how to show it. I let that sit. Then I asked the question I had been holding on to for years. So you chose them, over me. A long silence. Then, finally, yes. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally, but I'm glad you called. That's more than I deserve. My father replied, if you ever want to talk, really talk, I'm here. I'll do better. I'll believe that when I see it. Fair enough. We hung up. I sat there for a long time. Then I cried. not out of sadness, but because something inside me had finally loosened after years of carrying it. On January 3rd, I received a message from someone I had never met, a partner at a venture firm. He told me that in 2023, Ethan had pitched them an AI diagnostic system, claiming it was developed internally at Reed Biotech. They passed on it at the time, but after reading the article, he realized something. He attached the pitch deck. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't similar to my work. It was my work. The architecture, the data pipeline, even specific phrases I had created. Everything copied and presented as if it belonged to him. He hadn't just tried to take it, he had tried to sell it. My hands were shaking when I sent it to Daniel. He called almost immediately. This is serious. Casey, this isn't just internal misuse. This is attempted fraud. What do we do? Do you want to press charges? I thought about it, about everything that had already happened. No, I said, but I want it public. That same afternoon, the new article went live. This time, there was no room for doubt. Side-by-side comparisons, legal analysis, clear evidence. The reaction was immediate. People stopped calling it a family conflict. They called it what it was: theft. I didn't read much of it. I didn't need to. The truth was speaking on its own now. The next day, everything escalated. A major hospital network terminated its contract with Reed Biotech. The statement was brief, professional, and final. They could no longer be associated with a company under investigation for ethical violations. I read it twice, then closed my screen. The consequences had fully arrived. We cannot continue working with a company under investigation for ethical violations. That single line said everything. The contract was gone. Tens of millions, wiped out overnight. I kept scrolling. Reed Biotech's stock had dropped sharply in just a few days. Analysts were calling it a collapse in investor confidence. Employees were posting anonymously, talking about fear, uncertainty, layoffs. Then an email appeared in my inbox from someone inside the company, a project manager, 8 years there, 2 kids. She said she was afraid of losing everything because of what Ethan had done. She made it clear she wasn't defending him. She just wanted to survive. I stared at that message for a long time. Those people hadn't taken anything from me. They hadn't erased me. They were just caught in it. I called Daniel. The company is falling apart. I said, people are scared. What am I supposed to do? You told the truth. He replied, if the truth destroys something, it was already broken. This isn't your responsibility. I wanted to believe that. But that night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about them, about families who had nothing to do with any of this. And I realized something. I couldn't let guilt silence me again. On January 5th, my mother emailed. She wanted to meet. I almost said no, but something made me agree. We met in a cafe downtown, public, neutral. She walked in like she always did, controlled, composed. But something was different. She looked tired, older. She sat across from me and got straight to the point. I'll admit, Ethan made mistakes, she said. But what you've done, it's destroying everything. The company, the employees. Your father isn't well. Why am I here? I asked. She leaned forward. What do you want money A position for Ethan at your company? A seat on the board. Just say it. I stared at her. You think I did this for money? Then what? She snapped. Revenge. Attention. You've made your point. Everyone knows you're successful. Now fix this. Fix it. I repeated. You can clarify, she said quickly. Say things were misunderstood, that it's more complicated, that you've reconciled. We haven't. Then say it anyway. Her voice hardened. Do you understand what you're doing to this family? To your father's legacy? I looked straight at her. You're not worried about me, I said calmly. You're worried about your reputation, about what people are saying. Don't be childish. I'm not, I replied. I'm being clear. I won't take it back. I won't pretend none of this happened, and I won't make myself smaller just to make you comfortable. Her expression hardened. So you're willing to destroy us? No, I said quietly. I'm willing to protect myself, if that destroys you. Maybe you should ask why protecting me was never a priority. She stood up, putting her sunglasses back on. You'll regret this. I already do, I said. I regret that it had to come to this. She walked away without another word. I sat there alone, my coffee untouched, and for the first time, I felt steady. I wasn't going to fix what they broke. That wasn't my responsibility anymore. The next day, an email arrived that shifted everything. An invitation to speak at a major women in tech conference. They wanted me as the keynote speaker. They said my story mattered, that what I had done could inspire others. I read it twice, then called Dr. Lillian Grant. They want me to speak, I said, in front of over 1,000 people. That's incredible. She replied, I don't want to be known for this. I admitted, I don't want to be the woman whose brother tried to steal her work. I want to be known for what I built. You are, she said gently. That's exactly why your story matters. I stayed quiet. How many people do you think are still silent? She continued. How many are afraid to speak up because they don't want to cause conflict? I thought about the messages I'd received. The women who said they finally felt seen. You're not just telling your story, she said. You're giving them permission to tell theirs. That stayed with me. Okay, I said. I'll do it. That night, I started writing. Not about revenge, not about my family, about boundaries, about protecting your work, about choosing integrity over comfort. I wrote until early morning, rewriting every line until it felt honest, not perfect, but true. And I was starting to understand that truth was enough. A few days later, I received a message from Ethan. Can we talk? He wrote. Not as CEO and founder, just as brother and sister. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't answer. I stared at his message for 2 days. On January 12th, I finally called him back. Casey. His voice sounded different, tired, stripped of the confidence he used to carry so easily. Thank you for calling. I didn't think you would. What do you want? Ethan? He took a breath. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I was so focused on saving the company, on proving I could lead, that I didn't think about what I was taking from you. Didn't realize I asked, or didn't care. Silence. Maybe both. He admitted quietly. I thought I was helping, bringing you into something bigger. It was already bigger. I said, My company, my work. You try to erase that. I know, he said, his voice breaking, and I don't know how to fix it. You don't fix something like this with a conversation, I replied. But if you actually want to start, then tell the truth, publicly, not because your lawyers tell you to, not because the board forces you, because it's real. If I do that, I lose everything. Then that's your choice. Casey, you presented my work as yours. You tried to sell it. You threatened me. Those weren't mistakes. Those were decisions. If you want any kind of redemption, you have to own that. A long silence followed. I need time, he said. Take it. I replied. I'm not going anywhere. We hung up. I didn't know if he would do it. I wasn't even sure if he could, but I had said what needed to be said. 3 days later, I found out. On January 15th, I was sitting in a cafe, reviewing projections, when his statement appeared on my screen. A public apology. He admitted everything. That he had claimed my work as his own. That he presented it to investors. That he pressured me to hand it over. That he threatened me when I refused. He didn't hide behind excuses. He called it what it was. Wrong. He acknowledged that I built everything independently. That I had filed patents under my name. That he had taken something that was never his. And then he stepped down, resigned from every position at Reed Biotech to allow an investigation. I read it twice, then once more. I didn't feel satisfaction, just stillness, because for the first time, he had told the truth. He ended his statement with something I didn't expect. He said he hoped, someday, to earn back trust, not through words, but through actions. He admitted I deserved better, support, recognition, respect, and instead, he gave me betrayal. He said he understood if I never forgave him. I read it 3 times. The reactions came quickly. Some people respected him for admitting the truth. Others said it was too late, that he only apologized because he had no choice, that words didn't undo what he had done. I didn't know how I felt. Not victory, not relief. Exactly. Maybe quiet, because for the first time, he had acknowledged what I had lived through, but it didn't give me back the years I spent believing I was the problem. I called Dr. Lillian Grant. He apologized. I said, "And how do you feel?" she asked. "I don't know. That's okay." She said gently, "It doesn't fix anything, but it matters." He finally told the truth. "Yeah," I said softly, "it does." A few days later, Reed Biotech released another statement. This time, my father's name was on it. He was stepping back in as interim CEO while the company underwent restructuring. Ethan had officially resigned. They promised a full review of their practices, new policies, transparency, accountability. They said they wanted to rebuild trust. That afternoon, my father called. "I wanted you to hear it from me." He said, "I'm stepping in for now, just until things stabilize." That's a lot. I replied, "Are you okay?" "I will be," he said. "I owe this to the company, to the people who work there, and," he paused, "to you." I didn't say anything. I let things fall apart. He continued, "I'm going to fix what I can." "What's the plan?" "Everything changes," he said. "Ethics review, new policies on ownership and credit, external audits. We're even bringing in consultants to rebuild the culture. What happened to you? It can't happen again. That's good, I said quietly. I know I can't undo what I did. He added, but I'm trying. I see that. He hesitated. Would you ever consider helping us? Not with technology, with policy, with making sure people like you are never overlooked again. I thought about it, about walking back into that building, about everything that had happened there. Maybe someday, I said, but not now. That's fair. He replied, the door is always open. We ended the call. I didn't know if I would ever walk through that door, but I appreciated that he asked and that he didn't push. A few weeks later, I stood backstage at a large convention center, the Women in Tech Gala. Over 1,000 people were seated out there, waiting. Dr. Lillian Grant stepped into the room. You ready? She asked. I smoothed my dress, trying to steady my hands. No, I admitted. Then I took a breath. But I think I'm ready enough. I was wearing a simple black dress, nothing dramatic, nothing designed to impress. What if I freeze? I asked quietly. You won't, Doctor, Lillian Grant said. You're not performing. You're telling the truth. Then I heard my name. Please welcome Casey Reed, founder and CEO of Synapse Core Technologies. The applause filled the room. I stepped onto the stage. The lights were blinding. I couldn't see faces, just shadows. Hundreds of women sitting there, watching, waiting. I took a breath. For most of my life, I began. I was told I made people uncomfortable. The room went silent. I was too quiet, too focused, too different. I didn't fit what my family expected me to be. So I started to believe the problem was me. No one moved. I spent years trying to shrink, trying to be less, trying to make my work smaller so no one would feel threatened by it. I paused. And when my own family tried to take that work from me, I almost let them, because I was more afraid of conflict than I was of disappearing. I looked out into the dark, but then I realized something. My voice steadied. I wasn't the problem. I was just surrounded by people who couldn't see my value. The first wave of applause came, soft at first, then growing, when I was forced to choose between staying silent to keep the peace or speaking up to protect what I built. I chose to speak. The room grew louder, not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I refused to disappear. People started standing. To anyone here who has been told to be quieter, smaller, easier, your work matters, your voice matters, and no one, not even family, has the right to take that from you. The entire room stood. I stood there, looking out at them, women who understood exactly what that felt like. And for the first time in years, I felt free. That night, back in my apartment, I opened my laptop. The messages were already there, hundreds of them. Women sharing their stories, saying they finally spoke up, that they stopped hiding, that they chose themselves. I read every single one. Some made me cry, some made me smile. All of them made me realize this wasn't just my story anymore. It was something bigger. I replied to as many as I could. Protect your work. Document everything. Set boundaries. Your voice matters. Use it. Later that night, Doctor Grant texted me. You did good, Casey. Really good. I looked around my apartment. It didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like mine. I think I finally believe that. I typed back. A few weeks later, I moved to San Francisco, not to escape anything, but to build something new. Synapse Corps' headquarters was there, a space filled with people who actually valued ideas, not status. I found a small apartment nearby, nothing extravagant, but it was mine. I set up my workspace carefully, my laptop, my notes, the framed patent certificate Daniel had given me, photos from moments that mattered, Dr. Grant and me at graduation, my co-founders at the IPO, a photo from the gala. I paused for a second. There were no pictures of my family. Not yet. Maybe never. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty about that. There were no photos of my family. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But for once, I didn't feel guilty about that. That Sunday evening, I called my father. I moved. I said, San Francisco, this weekend. There was a pause on the other end. That's far, he said quietly. It's where the company is. I know. I just thought maybe you'd come back someday. Maybe, I said, but not now. He understood. If I wanted to visit, would that be okay? Not yet, I replied. But someday, just call first. Don't show up unannounced. I will. And Dad, I added, if you come, it has to be because you want to know me, not because you're trying to fix everything. I do want to know you, he said. I should have wanted that a long time ago. You should have, I said softly. I'll call. He promised. We hung up. I stood by my window, looking out over the city lights, the quiet movement of people below, the life I was building piece by piece. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged to myself. A few months later, everything shifted again. We announced a major partnership at our office in San Francisco. My team gathered for a small press conference. Just a few journalists. Nothing extravagant. I stood at the front with my co-founders as our presentation lit up the screen behind us. Synapse Core Technologies is proud to announce a partnership with Redwood Medical Institute. I said, a $50 million agreement to implement our AI diagnostic system across their network. Cameras flashed. This technology will allow earlier detection of life-threatening conditions. I continued. Diseases that are often missed until it's too late. A journalist raised her hand. How does it feel? She asked. To see your work finally recognized at this level, I paused. For a moment, I wasn't in that room anymore. I was back in my apartment, alone, watching my family celebrate without me, protecting something no one else believed in. I looked back at the journalist. It feels like justice, I said. It feels like justice, I said. Not revenge, justice. Another journalist leaned forward. Your company's valuation has nearly doubled since the IPO. You're now worth billions. Does that validate your decision to go public? I didn't do it for validation, I replied. I did it because staying silent was costing me my integrity. I paused. The success, the growth. That's not why I spoke up. But it does prove something. What's that? That the people who told me my work didn't matter were wrong. That I was right to protect it. And that believing in yourself, even when no one else does, matters. after the conference. We stayed in the office. My co-founders opened a bottle of champagne. To Casey, one of them said, raising a glass, who refused to disappear. We all laughed softly and clinked glasses. I looked around at my team, people who listened, who respected ideas, who never made me feel like I had to shrink. This was what I had been fighting for, a place where I could exist fully. By the end of the year, everything felt different. On December 31st, I was back in my apartment, but I wasn't alone. My team filled the space, talking, laughing, sharing food, arguing over movies like we had known each other for years. At 11:30, my phone buzzed. Doctor, Lillian Grant. I stepped into another room and answered. How are you? She asked, smiling. Good, I said. Really good. I'm proud of you, she said. Everything you've built this year. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have, she said gently, but I'm glad I was there. She paused. Have you heard from your family? My dad texted. I said, he's visiting soon. We're having dinner. Just us. And Ethan, no. And your mother? I looked out the window for a moment. No, I said. And I think I'm okay with that. Are you really? Yes, I answered. I spent my whole life waiting for her approval. I don't need it anymore. We said goodbye. I walked back into the living room just as the countdown started. Everyone joined in, laughing, counting, together. When midnight hit, the room filled with noise and light. Someone handed me a glass. I walked to the window and looked out at the city. 1 year ago, I had been alone, watching other people celebrate, feeling invisible. Now, I wasn't. I opened my laptop and started writing about that night, about everything that had changed, about what it means to choose yourself. I shared it within minutes. Messages began to appear, people saying they felt seen, that they were finally setting boundaries, that they were no longer staying silent. I closed the laptop and turned back to the room. This was my life now, not the one I was given, the one I chose. And for the first time, it felt like home. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. People often ask me, do you regret it? Was it worth losing your family? Here's the truth, I didn't lose them. They lost me the moment they chose reputation over me, when they dismissed my work and tried to erase who I was. And yes, it was worth it. Because the alternative was losing myself. I spent 29 years trying to fit into a space that was never meant for me, trying to be smaller, quieter, easier just to make others comfortable. I won't do that anymore. You don't owe anyone, not even family, the right to diminish you. Your voice matters. Your work matters. And you deserve to exist fully. Without apology, if you would make the same choice as I did, choosing to stand up for yourself, protect your work, and refuse to disappear, then write a wise choice so I know I wasn't alone in that decision. If you would choose differently, staying silent, keeping the peace, or putting family above your own identity, then write staying silent and share why. And if your path would be somewhere in between, write other options and tell me your story. There's no perfect answer here, just honesty, courage, and the choice each of us makes when we decide who we are. There are moments in life when you're forced to choose between keeping the peace and keeping yourself. I used to believe that if I stayed quiet, if I endured, everything would eventually be okay. But the truth is, every time I chose silence, I lost a piece of who I was. This story isn't just about right or wrong, or who hurt whom. The biggest lesson I've learned is this: your value doesn't come from others recognizing you, it comes from you recognizing yourself. When you truly know who you are, you no longer feel the need to shrink to fit someone else's expectations. And sometimes, the most painful realization isn't that others hurt you, but that you allowed it for far too long. I also learned that boundaries are not selfish. Many of us are taught to sacrifice, to endure for the sake of family or others. But if that sacrifice costs you your identity, then it's no longer love, it's a loss. You deserve respect. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be seen for who you truly are. If you're still here listening, take a moment for yourself. Have a sip of water. Stretch your shoulders. Take a deep breath. You may have been sitting for a while, and maybe this story has stirred something inside you. That's okay. You're not weak for feeling you're human. I don't know what you've been through, but if you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or not enough, remember this: you are not the problem. Sometimes you're just in the wrong environment, one that doesn't see your worth, and you have every right to walk away and find a place where you can truly be yourself. If this story resonated with you in any way, I hope you'll share your own, because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. We are never truly alone. We just haven't always found the people who understand us yet. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for walking this journey with me. If this message meant something to you, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing this video with someone who might need it. You're not just a viewer. You're part of a community of people who choose themselves, and that has real value. I'll see you in the next story.
Welcome to Family Confessions. Our stories go beyond entertainment, helping viewers recognize toxic behaviors, understand boundaries, and reflect on their relationships, while reinforcing self-worth and the strength to heal and move forward. Each video follows a structured workflow ensuring quality and value for our audience. Thank you for being here.